I want you to think about something for a second. Not something dramatic, just something small and honest that I think you'll recognize the moment I say it. There's an idea you keep having. Could be a YouTube channel, could be a podcast, could be something creative you've been turning over in your mind for months, maybe longer. And you know how the story goes. You get excited about it, you think about what it would look like, you maybe even open a new tab and look something up. And then life just continues. You close the tab. You go back to watching other people do the thing you were thinking about doing. And somewhere in the back of your mind, that idea doesn't fully go away. It just sits there, quietly waiting. Here's the part I want you to stay with, because I'm going to come back to this at the end, and I think it'll hit differently then. 6 months is not a long time, but it's also long enough for everything to change, and it passes either way. So the only real question is, what will you have to show for the next 6 months? I'm going to talk about that today. Not with hype, not with a list of tips you'll forget by tomorrow, but in a way that's honest about what actually happens when you start something, what it actually costs, and why the people who are living the version of this you want for yourself are not smarter than you, not more talented than you, and were not more ready than you are right now when they began. The central idea of this whole video is simple, and I want to say it plainly before we go any further. The cost of not starting is not zero. That sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but the way most people think about not starting is that it's neutral. That waiting is just a pause, a holding pattern, a non-decision. Like nothing is happening when you don't act. But that's not how time works. Time isn't a waiting room, it's a runway. And every week you're on it, you're either building speed or you're just standing still while the runway gets shorter. What I really want to explore today is the specific gap between the person you are right now and the person you would be if you had started 6 months ago. And what it would mean if 6 months from now you look back and realized you'd finally closed it. Because that gap is closable. It closes the same way for everyone who closes it. Not through some special talent or perfect timing or finally feeling ready. It closes because someone decided to stop waiting and start making something. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. Everything else in this video is just different angles on that one idea. Maybe you've noticed this too. The specific exhaustion of being a person who consumes a lot of content about something they want to do instead of doing it. It's a strange loop to be in. You watch creators talk about their journey. You take notes mentally or literally. You learn about algorithms and niches and thumbnails and retention. You feel informed. You feel like you're moving toward something. And in a way, you are, but you're moving toward it the way you move toward the horizon. You can walk all day and the horizon stays exactly where it was. The information is not the problem. Most people who want to start a YouTube channel know more than enough to start one. They know what equipment works. They know the rough shape of what makes a video good. They know that consistency matters more than perfection. They know all of it, and they still haven't started. So the problem is something underneath the information. Something the information can't actually fix. There's also the comparison that happens constantly when you're in that loop. You watch a channel that's 2 years in, polished thumbnails, smooth editing, comfortable on camera presence, 10,000 subscribers, and some part of your brain registers that as the entry bar, the thing you'd have to be before anyone would want to watch you. And so you wait to become that before you begin, without quite noticing that the only way to become that is to go through the beginning, through the unpolished, uncomfortable, uncertain beginning that everyone you admire already lived through, and most of them don't show you anymore. There's a version of you watching someone else's year 2 and concluding you're not ready for year 1. And that math will never work out in your favor. Let me tell you about 2 people, and I want you to watch which one you recognize yourself in. The first person, let's call him Alex. Alex wanted to start a channel for about 8 months. It'd have a genuine perspective, something specific about his life, his work, his interests that doesn't exist anywhere else on the internet in quite the same combination. Alex researched his niche. He watched videos about the algorithm, about thumbnails, about how to grow in the first year. He made notes. He outlined video ideas. He thought about his channel name for longer than most people think about naming their children. He just haven't filmed anything yet. And here's the thing about this person. He's not lazy. He works hard. He's driven in other areas of his life. The issue isn't that he don't care about this. The issue is that starting feels like a performance he's not ready yet to give. Like the curtain would go up before he learned all the lines, so he stay in rehearsal indefinitely. The second person, let's call him Daniel. Daniel started 8 months ago, and his first video was rough. The audio had a hum in it. The pacing was off. Daniel talked for too long about things that didn't matter, and not long enough about the part the audience actually cared about. It got 21 views, 11 of which were probably themselves checking how many views it had. He made another one anyway, and another one after that. And then something quiet but significant happened. He got faster. Not famous, not viral, just faster. The ideas became more clear. The editing became more natural. The on-camera presence, or the voiceover confidence, started to feel like something he owned rather than something he was borrowing. 6 videos in, he sounded like himself. 12 videos in, he had a real sense of what his audience wanted. And somewhere around video 20, something in the algorithm clicked open for him. Not because of some trick or hack, but because Daniel had enough content for the algorithm to pattern match, enough watch time to signal real interest, enough iterations to have accidentally stumbled into something genuinely good. 8 months after his rough 67,000 views he made from the first video, he had something. Not a massive channel, maybe, but something real, a skill, a small audience of people who actually care, and that was enough proof that he can actually build something. Alex is still outlining, and here's what I want you to understand about that. The distance between Alex and Daniel is not talent. It's not luck. It's not better equipment, or a more interesting niche, or a more favorable algorithm. It's one decision made 8 months ago to let reality into the process. That's it. But here's the thing that I think most people fundamentally misunderstand about starting something creative. And this is the reframe that I want you to actually hold on to, because everything else builds on it. The bad beginning is not the obstacle. The bad beginning is the work. When people wait to start until they're good enough, they're waiting for an outcome that can only be produced by the process they're avoiding. It's not a preparation problem. It's a sequencing problem. You've put the result before the cause and then concluded that the cause can't happen yet because you don't have the result, which is a loop you cannot think your way out of. You can only do your way out of it. And what most people don't realize is that the first videos, the rough ones, the uncertain ones, the ones that get 40 views and make you cringe, those videos are not failures you have to survive before the real journey begins. Those videos are the real journey. That's the work. That is, in the most literal possible sense, you building the skill. Every awkward sentence you get through on camera is you becoming more comfortable on camera. Every video you finish and post, regardless of how it performs, is you proving to yourself that you can see something through from idea to completion and put it into the world. And that proof, that quiet, private proof, is the foundation everything else gets built on. The people who grow on YouTube are not the people who waited until they were ready. They're the people who got ready by going. One of the things that deserves more honesty than it usually gets is what the first 6 months actually look like, because the version people imagine and the version that actually happens are pretty different, and that gap is responsible for a lot of people quitting. The first month is humbling. Let me just say that clearly so it's not a surprise when you live it. The numbers are small. The feedback is sparse. The videos take longer to make than you expected and feel less good than you hoped. And there's a specific loneliness to posting something you put real effort into and watching it receive almost no response. That's real, and it's normal, and it passes, but only if you keep going through it rather than taking it as a verdict. What's actually happening in that first month underneath the discouraging numbers is something genuinely valuable. You're learning your workflow. You're figuring out what works about your delivery and what doesn't. You're discovering things about your voice, both literal and figurative, that you couldn't have discovered any other way. You're building what might be the single most important skill in the whole process, which is the ability to finish something even when you're not sure it's good enough. That skill has compounding returns that will show up for you in ways you can't fully predict yet. The second thing worth understanding is that the algorithm is not your enemy, but it's also not your friend in the way most beginners think. It doesn't reward the best videos. It rewards the videos that audiences respond to. And you won't know what your audience responds to until you have an audience. And you won't have an audience until you have videos. And you won't have videos until you start making them. There is no way to shortcut this sequence. But here's the quiet truth buried inside it. The algorithm is actually quite forgiving to new channels that are consistent and improving, because those are signals it can work with. You don't need to be brilliant. You need to be present and getting better. And here's something that almost never gets said in these conversations. The channel you'll end up with is almost certainly not the channel you'd plan if you spent another 3 months planning. The niche you think you're building for will evolve as you discover what you actually have to say. The format you think will work will shift as you learn what your audience actually responds to. The version of your channel that gains traction will emerge from the process of making the channel, not from the strategy you designed before you started. This isn't an argument against strategy. It's an argument for accepting that the strategy has to be flexible, and the only way to know what needs to flex is to start and see what happens. There's also something about the way creative work changes you that's separate from what it does for your channel, and this part actually matters more than most people expect. When you become someone who makes things, someone who finishes something, puts it into the world, invites a response, your relationship with your own ideas changes. You start noticing things worth saying everywhere. You start seeing your daily life as material rather than just experience. You develop an instinct for what's interesting that can't be taught, only built through practice. And that instinct bleeds into everything else. It changes how you communicate at work, how you carry yourself in conversations, how clearly you can articulate what you think and what you want. The channel is the visible thing, but the invisible thing it builds in you is arguably more valuable. The last thing I want to say in this section is about the saturation argument, because it comes up constantly and it deserves a clear answer. Yes, there are a lot of YouTube channels. Yes, there are probably channels about whatever topic you're considering. None of that actually matters for the reason most people think it does. You are not competing with the most popular channel in your niche. You're building a specific thing for a specific subset of people who will resonate with your specific voice. And that subset doesn't exist yet, not as your audience, because you haven't shown up yet. The space isn't too crowded. It's just that your people haven't found you yet because you haven't given them anything to find. Step back far enough from all of this, and what you're really looking at is something much older than YouTube. It's the question of what it means to make something versus consume something, and why so many people in modern life have quietly drifted to one side of that line without quite choosing to. There's a philosopher named Albert Borgman who wrote about how modern technology tends to replace focal practices, the things that required genuine skill, sustained effort, and personal presence, with devices that deliver the outcome of those practices without the practice itself. You don't have to cook if you can order delivery. You don't have to navigate if you have GPS. You don't have to create if you can consume. And the convenience is real. But there's a cost that arrives silently. The atrophy of the capacity to make, to sustain effort towards something, to be Be the author of your own experience rather than the audience of someone else's. Most people who feel vaguely stuck, vaguely directionless, vaguely like something is missing, but can't identify what. I think what they're actually missing is authorship. The feeling of building something. The sense that your time is going towards something you can point to and say, I made that. YouTube or any creative project done consistently over time gives that back. Not immediately, not without friction, but it gives it back. And here's the thing about the kind of learning that happens when you make something. It's qualitatively different from the kind of learning that happens when you consume something. You can watch 100 videos about how to ride a bike. You understand balance, momentum, steering, how to fall safely. And then you get on the bike and none of that knowledge helps you as much as 30 seconds of actually trying. The doing is a different category of knowing. It produces a different kind of confidence. And that confidence, earned through direct experience, through the specific awkwardness of actually trying in public, is something that watching other people do it can never give you. That's the gap that only starting can close. I said at the beginning that 6 months is not a long time, but it's long enough for everything to change. I want to come back to that now because I think it lands differently after everything we've talked about. 6 months from now exists. It will arrive. Nothing about your decision to start or not to start changes that fact. The only thing your decision changes is what that moment contains. Whether you're looking back at 6 months of building, imperfect, humbling, rewarding, real, or 6 months of planning, consuming, waiting for the right moment that didn't come. There's no motivation I can give you that will matter more than that simple framing. And I don't want to try. Motivation fades. The understanding of how time actually works, the quiet acknowledgement that waiting has a cost that compounds just as much as action does. That's the thing that stays. You know what you want to do. You've probably known for a while. The equipment question is solvable. The niche question is solvable. The I don't know enough yet question is solved by the very process you're avoiding. None of the reasons are actually reasons. They're just friction that feels like reasons when you're close to something that scares you. And it does scare people. Making something and putting it into the world is genuinely vulnerable. Letting other people respond or not respond to something you made is uncomfortable in a way that planning and researching never are. That discomfort is real. And it's also the exact texture of doing something that matters. 6 months from now, you'll either have started or you'll still be thinking about starting. That choice is yours right now, today, in this moment. Not in some dramatic change your life overnight sense. Just in the quiet, practical sense of the next video in your feed or a blank document and a record button. The second option is still there. It's been there this whole time. It'll still be there after this video ends. The only question is when you're finally going to stop watching other people use it.